Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. Today I'm going to take a little step away from my usual Around the World horror series. I'm going to be resuming that very shortly, but for now I'm going to do a review of a film I saw yesterday. This is an Argentinian horror film, so this added a lot of interest for me because I haven't seen any horror films from South America. So an Argentinian horror film. This has a lot of hype surrounding it as being a very, very extreme film, so that added more curiosity to it, and I just had to see it. It's not the type of film I usually go for, but I like to test my limits, so I thought, I'm going to have a look at this one. I never thought I'd get the opportunity, but it was sent to me, so I was lucky for that. This is a 2007 Argentinian horror film directed by Mariano Peralta, and this is Snuff 102. Now, a lot of hype, as I said, has surrounded Snuff 102. It's got a reputation. Apparently, when it was shown in a film festival, at the end of the film, the director got attacked because of the content, and it upset a lot of people. And if a film does this, it's going to generate a lot of interest. So this is a pretty well-known film in the underground sort of horror. But for those of you who are in mainstream, you probably will never have heard of this one, and so therefore hopefully you find this review interesting. So basically, Snuff 102 is about this woman who is studying snuff films. She's a reporter and she's doing a story on the myth and legend of snuff films. And so she goes and she's looking on the internet and she's looking at all these sort of snuff film clips, and whether they're real or fake. You get these sort of clips on the internet. Not that I've actually looked for them, but you've been told about snuff films on the internet, and most of the time they're fake. But anyway, she looks at them and she's looking at all this really horrible, disturbing stuff. She's getting really disturbed, but at the same time she's getting more and more interest. And then she goes and she interviews this guy who specializes in visuals of violence, and how what we see on the television screen, the way we can disconnect ourselves from the person, and we become desensitized to the violence, and we see this person not as a human being but as an object, and therefore it's easier to pretty much give yourself an excuse to watch it. So that's really true. These days, like Hostel, they call it torture porn. I don't like that term, but it's things where you don't know too much about the characters, or the characters come across as annoying. Therefore, we see them as an object, not as a person, and we don't sympathise with these people. Therefore, we don't mind watching them getting tortured, and the torture really turns into something that's cool rather than horrible. So basically, yeah, we're told, and this is what separates this from the usual sort of pseudo snuff films from, say, August Underground. This has a story. It's a very thin story, but it does make you think about what the world has become these days in film. So anyway, it turns out that there's three women who have actually been caught on a real snuff film. And so we go from the interview with this person, and it goes back and forth from the interview to a real life sort of snuff film, where three women are captured and they're about to be tortured on video. I'm not giving any spoilers because it's pretty obvious what it's about, and it's not a film that's really it's not going to really hurt it even if you give away everything, because it's not a film that relies solely on a storyline. It relies heavily on the shock value. So anyway, we go from this, as I said, the interview to some torture sequences. Three women are tied up, and we actually get an insight into these three women's lives. We don't go in depth about their life, but we know enough to care for them. We feel sympathy for them, and we don't see them as objects. We see them as human beings. Therefore, it becomes much more horrific when we actually see what this madman does to these women. So that's as far as I go with the story. Now, this has been known as one of the most extreme films out there. I totally agree. I actually found this better than August Underground. Now, as I said, August Underground had a real feel to it, like a pseudo snuff, like you've actually found it in a rubbish bin and it is real. And there's no sort of soundtrack, there's no introduction, there's no sort of story. So that was good for what it was trying to do, and that was to shock, and that was to give something different to the horror audience. This film, with the torture sequences, a lot like August Underground, but it also had that sort of backstory of visuals of violence, which make you think. And I think that really helped the film in the end. And, it made it more interesting. Now, is this a film I liked? No, I didn't like it. And is it a film I enjoyed? No. I don't think many people could enjoy this film at all. It is not a film to be enjoyed. It's a film to experience and to survive. It is a real hit to your face. It's hit hits you in the head with a sledgehammer, and it pretty much doesn't let you get up until the end. It is a very disturbing atmosphere, very cheap feel to it. It's a homemade sort of shot on video camera, but the actual scenes where the woman is interviewing this guy who specializes in these sort of visual violence, that is an actual better quality. So it's pretty much the story. The actual story to the film is shot differently, and then the actual torture sequences are shot low quality sort of homemade video appearance. Some of the scenes are very dark, so you can't really see what's going on, which leaves a lot up to the imagination, which once again, if you that kind of person who is disturbed more by the less you see, then there are a lot of scenes in this film where you see less, but it's just as shocking. And then the graphic violence in this is quite brutal as well. Now, is this a film I'm going to recommend? No. I recommend it for those of you who like extreme horror, who like films like August Underground or Nikudarama. I haven't actually seen Nikudarama, but I've been told that's pretty intense. If you like those films, you'll like this film, and I do recommend it to you. But if you're into the milder type of horror and you're just getting started in extreme, then I'd probably wait a very long time before I see this. If you're going into extreme, and take baby steps, because this one pretty much is the extreme of the extreme, in my opinion. For me, this is probably one of the most intense films I've ever seen. It's not a film I'll watch again because I don't need to watch it again. I'll probably remember this film for the rest of my life. It scarred me. So for those of you who aren't as hardcore, sort of a hardcore fan of this type of stuff, I would stay well away from it, because it really is a brutal film, and one of the most sadistic, cruel, barbaric, horrible, nasty, ghastly films that you'll ever see. The actual torture sequences, as I said, are very well done. They're very realistic, and no excessive sort of gore or blood. It's horrible. There is a lot of humiliation. There is nothing nice about this film. You will not feel good about it at all. At the end of the film, it's like you'll want to have a shower, because it's just one of those really dirty films, and you'll probably feel bad for watching it, because it's just one of those films where it's just a really, really nasty piece of work. The acting, I don't know how good the acting was. It's in Spanish, so I don't know how natural it comes across for someone who doesn't speak it. But this film doesn't rely on it really doesn't rely on the acting. It doesn't make an effort to really be an Oscar-worthy film. It's just a really horrible look into violence on screen. And you really become connected with these victims, and it does make that point. And the fact that we get an insight into their lives makes them more than just an object. So it is a very intense film. It's a very barbaric film, so please, if you're not into the extreme stuff, stay well away from this film. But if you want to test your limits and you want to see how hardcore you can get, then definitely see it. But yeah, be warned, it is very, very extreme. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later.